Welcome to Amazon Legends, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became power sellers, also providers specializing in helping sellers, aggregators that acquire sellers, and former Amazonians will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here is your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. My next guest today is someone who's already been on the show, and it was such a critical time for him because he was transitioning from 1P to 3P. And I invited him back because as we record this in February of 2024, there are a lot of first-party vendors to Amazon are not happy, or Amazon pushing them out, whatever the case may be, and they're all moving out to becoming a 3P. So I thought that his experience would be extremely valuable. And this is not to say that this is only for 1P people, because we're talking about, at the end of the day, what works as a seller. So this will be a good opportunity for us. Just a little bit about him. He's a startup addict. That's how he described himself. Loves startups, and he's the vice president and director of e-commerce at San Diego Coffee, Tea, and Spice Company. And at the time when we recorded, he had just had a new baby girl, and now she must be like 2 years old. And also, he's an avid surfer living in San Diego. So with that, everybody, meet my guest, Craig Leslie. Welcome back to the show, Craig.
Thanks so much, Nick. It's great to be here.
Ironically, today, I spoke to another one of my previous guests, and still working, and it makes me feel especially happy because, you know, these Amazon sellers, they start and then they disappear, start and disappear. So we're now touching touching base with about 2 years ago, the people that I had on the show, and they're all around. So
hey, that's a good thing. I was gonna say, I hope I'm not going anywhere, but
no, listen, it's good to be on the show. That's what I'm getting.
Yes. Well, hopefully in another 2 years you'll have me back, and we'll have even more of a story.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing great. So as I mentioned earlier, you've gone through this major transition, and you know it's grueling. It's really tough because it's tedious. It's so many moving parts. So I thought that it would be great for you to walk us through what was it that worked, and what are some things that you ran into that was ultimately fine, but you know, it took time. And also, what were some things that just was not going to work, and then you had to do from scratch. So give us an outline of your approach, and then we'll dig into it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple caveats too. I think Amazon 3 years ago, so I started the transition really at the beginning of 2022, and Amazon in 2022 is much different than Amazon is starting 2024, which I know it's not a huge amount of time, but the processes and procedures that it takes have tightened and have become even, I think, harder than when I started the transition from 1P to 3P. But, you know, I think that one of my biggest takeaways from the transition was I tried to hire an agency to help me with it, which ultimately slowed the process down because they didn't know my business. You know, I had to educate them on the business. I had to educate them where I was at, why I wanted to go from 1P to 3P, which was still kind of a debate at that time, which one was better than the other and reasons why. You know, I think that debate has swung towards a lot of brands leaning to move to 3P if they haven't moved to 3P already. And each brand has their own reasons, but you know, I think from the actual task list of getting it done, there's a lot. I mean, you can transition your catalog in one day, but you're going to have a lot of red tape. You're going to have suppressed listings. You're going to not, you know, depending what programs you were a part of in 1P and how long you had been on 1P, some of those programs may not exist anymore, and current Amazon employees may not even know how to get you out of those programs to unsuppress some of your listings on 3P. I mean, I learned, I think in that year and a half, 2 years of transition, I learned more in regards to Amazon and the operating side of the back end of Amazon than I had learned in the previous 10 or 11 years that I'd worked on Amazon.
So, I mean, operating, because as a first party vendor, you're getting a purchase order and then you're shipping it, right? So there isn't really much hands-on stuff that you are involved with. But as a third party seller, it's every day. That's your place of business. You're going in, you're checking everything, from your listings to shipments to, rate your all these ratings, the reviews, and everything else, right? So it's a real operating area. So to me, what I'm finding is creating a listing as a third party seller, as a brand owner, is already hard enough because you have flat files, you have this, you have that, you have the and of course they don't really know, and the brand registry is obviously there for you to show that you are the brand owner, but still there are checks and balances to make sure that the changes that you're making to the listing, they are legit and it's coming from an authorized party. When you are a first party vendor, your listings were created already, and now you're switching to third party. Walk us through that part of taking control of the listings.
It's near impossible. It's doable. I'm done with it. It was a lot of sleepless nights. Amazon has their hierarchy pyramid, and 1P is close to the top. There's retail contributions, which is one higher, and then there's leadership, which is even higher than that. And then there's, I think, brand registry sellers, and then, resellers, which have very little control. But as a brand, and even being on Seller Central and being brand registered, I was still lower from contribution rights perspective than my 1P account. And then I'm lower than Amazon, which they have a tool now, which I don't know when it came out, but it's called Data Augmenter. I think AI is actually creating, one of the things is like a size attribute, and it's pulling from your flat file. But in my case, it wasn't pulling correctly. I would have to make the argument that, hey, I'm the brand owner, I'm this, and this, but it's a process and you have to stay dedicated to it. And you can't let tickets close, and you have to just keep going. I think the most I got up to was like 35 back and forths before I was finally able to get a listing put under my brand and saying that my third party account had full authority. All that being said, ultimately what I had to do was delete every single product from Vendor Central. And then that was when brand registry finally allowed me to have control over my catalog on 3P.
So, but the listings in your Vendor Central account are created by Amazon, right?
Correct. So technically Amazon owns them, but I had to work through different channels, and ultimately had to have those deleted. And so if you looked at my Vendor Central catalog right now, there's 0 products in it, because I had to have it all deleted. So then after a certain amount of time, I don't remember what it is, but then it switches over to the brand and the contributor on 3P. And a lot of the process is a waiting game. I did not start with my hero ASINs because I didn't know what the process would look like. I started with low moving, low volume ASINs and learned the processes. And then by the end, I was able to transition my hero ASINs over without much of a headache.
So you are asking Amazon to delete those listings from your Vendor Central. So you're not something you are doing yourself, right?
Yeah, so it was like, obviously we can all go into edit and delete or permanently mark as unfulfillable, or I don't remember what it's called, but we can do that, but that does not delete the actual listing. So, and you can do inventory feed files on Seller Central, right? To delete a listing and re-upload after 24 or 48 hours if you need to fix an attribute. But to my knowledge, you can't do that on Vendor Central because Amazon actually controls those listings, and it's just much harder. So the transition took a lot of hand holding and collaboration, I guess, on Amazon's part. But it's a lot of time and effort. I mean, it's, and like I mentioned, I hired some people to help me with it, but because the knowledge of the brand and the history of the brand on Amazon and everything wasn't there, it all almost made it more cloudy. So a lot of the work fell on me personally, because a lot of it was, going back and forth the brand registry or vendor central and explaining this, and this. Or like we had products that were a part of frustration-free packaging, which I think it's now technically SIP, and FFP is gone. So it was like we had to figure out how to get that certification off of some of our products to move them to Seller Central. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without Amazon's help. Like,
Yeah. So it sounds like the agency help was not as much as the Amazon's help. That is always not very good quality anyways.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's why it takes so long. I also don't want to discount agencies out there who focus on this, because I think there are some agencies that are very good at it. I just don't know that during that transition period, I don't know that I had the right team to help me with it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you don't know, right? So it's very hard to know. And these asking for references and things like that doesn't really matter because they're not going to give you a bad reference, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, right? But the biggest thing was persistence. I hate cases, but I realized that if I don't manage them and I'm not the one reopening them, like they're gonna close, and then I'm gonna have to start all over. I don't remember their time frame, but like once on Seller Central, at least, like once they close it, like you only have, I don't know, 36 hours to reopen it or something like
yeah.
that. You have to be on it like 7 days a week, because sometimes they'll close it on a Friday afternoon. And if you don't look until Monday afternoon, you have to start back at ground zero.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I tell people you always have to be on top of your Seller Central, whether it's a case or some kind of notification. So, okay, did you work them through your Seller Central account, or did you have to go to brand registry? Because there are some listing issues that is much easier, faster to solve through brand registry support. Which one did you use?
I'll add one in there. I'll add Vendor Central. So all three. So it depended on the issue. So like listing, once the catalog was migrated, I worked mainly with brand registry and Seller Central support to get the catalog cleaned up. When products were still in the catalog on Vendor Central, a lot of times I had to, if I was trying to update, different attributes before I moved it over because I knew it would cause issues, I would have to go through Vendor Central, and or like the frustration-free packaging issues I had to do through Vendor Central because that wasn't available on Seller Central. So it's like, and that's, I think for brands moving, if you have a team, great, that can work on this. If you're solo and you're going to be in it 100% of the time, and you're going to be the one who's going to have to solve it and figure out what channel to go to. But I also think there's a lot of resources out there that can help. There's a couple issues that I'm running into now that aren't related to this, but there's forums and on Slack and stuff like that where there's people who have seen it before. Like I'm not the first one who ran into these issues.
Yeah, yeah.
So ask questions and reach out.
So, what is the biggest advantage that now that you move to 3P versus first part?
I think transparency, or I guess access to data, right? Like Vendor Central is very closed. Amazon owns everything. Not that they don't on 3P, but you know what I mean? Like the reporting isn't nearly as robust on 1P. From copy and content edits, like 3P is way, way better than 1P. And you can update things. And then to answer your question, if I had to pick one, I think pricing is one of the biggest ones,
Oh,
because you submit pricing to Vendor Central and it just goes into this abyss, and then eventually you get something that says, no, we don't accept your price increase. You're like, well, but on Seller Central, obviously we can fluctuate how we need to.
yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about inventory, handling the inventory, because that's another challenge, right? So you have inventory at Amazon and you are transitioning. So some of that inventory is bought and paid for, and so tell us some things that you learned about the best way to handle that transition?
Yeah, I think slowly transitioning is the way to do it. We obviously, our hero ASINs had a lot more stock at Amazon that was purchased by 1P. So not only was I trying to learn by using lower velocity SKUs, but I needed to run through this inventory on this side and then start canceling POs and going through that process to obsolete products so that they wouldn't keep sending POs. But at the same time, you're almost doing double the work, right? Because you're paying attention to vendor central inventory, and then you have to build it into a system, an inventory system, which I just use Google Sheets and pull down a couple of reports from Seller Central, and started transitioning the brand demand forecast. One issue outside of like that transition and ebbing and flowing was the subscribe and save. Technically, and maybe they fix this, I don't know, but technically subscriptions are supposed to transfer over to 3P from 1P. That did not happen for us. So we had to start subscribe and save all over again. And that kind of messed up our inventory too, because I was focusing on obviously that has pretty easy to figure out the demand on that. And I was sending that to 3P, but the subscriptions weren't turning because they didn't get moved over.
So when you transition from 1P to 3P and you don't get the subscriptions transferred, what do?
We just had to rebuild the program, right? But on 3P, you have to have the sales velocity to be able to be included in subscribe and save. So like that took a little bit of time. But technically, what I was told is that the consumer who has a subscription is supposed to get an email that says switch. And apparently that never happened.
Oh, I see.
So I still don't understand that whole thing, but it got messed up in my transition.
Okay. All right. So, but what I'm hearing from you is doing this in phases, and especially starting from the slower items rather than the best sellers. That's the key.
Yeah, I also think first thing you need to do is have clean data. Like make sure you have pull down as much information as you can from 1P and get the new flat files from 3P and fill it out as complete as possible. And then, then upload, start that transition. Yeah, I think make sure all your data is and save it.
Yeah. And by data, you're referring to the listing data, the content. Because
Yeah,
they
the
have
content data.
attributes, and being a vendor central listing, they probably have a lot more of those attributes populated. And if you go to 3P and you do a half job, then you lost content, right?
Yeah, and the other piece of that is like I had listings that had been on there since 2007 that I hadn't done a ton of optimization. So those didn't have a lot of the information filled out, and I did not fill out my flat file before on everything. So when I loaded it to 3P, it loaded, but there were locked attributes, right? That I couldn't go back and change. You can, but it takes a lot of time and effort. So if I would have done, on those listings, if I would have had a flat file completely filled out with every column with something in it and uploaded that, I would have been a lot farther ahead than having to go backwards.
Yeah, it's always after the fact, you realize that this could have been such an easy and quick job, but as yet, you kept trying. So, have you ever used the IDQ report?
No, I don't know. What is that?
Okay, so I had a lady on the podcast, and she was specialized in this. So IDQ stands for Item Data Quality. This is not available through Seller Central naturally. You have to contact seller support and say, can I have my IDQ report? And then they will deliver it for you. So what IDQ report does is, so as you know, Amazon's business model is provide the best customer experience. So how do you improve a shopper's experience about a particular product that they may be looking for by the quality and the quantity of the data you provide, right?
Right.
So that comes in terms of specs, text, pictures, and everything that we all know about. But it also comes with all the attributes that you see on the left-hand side that is listed from top to bottom, search by this, by that, by the other, filter by all these attributes, especially if you have something that has those granular kind of specs.
Yeah.
They come in very handy. So what IDQ report does is it gives you a score. The top score is 100. If you have your title, bullets, blah, blah, what everybody knows, you're going to get 80%.
Yeah.
But that extra 20% is those incremental changes that you and apparently the report says you're missing this, you're missing that, you're missing the other. If you populate those, then the kind of impact it makes is huge, because suddenly you start to show up in all these other searches where, for example, you may be in page 5 because it's not, the filtering is not available, but some people filter, then you end up on page 1.
Question for you on this, because that's fascinating, and I'm gonna go after this. I'm gonna go request it, but it almost sounds like in addition to the category listing report, because like when I download the category listing report, I can see the 3-mile long spreadsheet with all the attributes and what I'm missing. But this sounds like it might be it takes it even a step farther.
Yeah, Google IDQ score, and
Yeah.
then do some research. You will find that this is something separate. So, with Amazon, everything is metrics, right? So it's score, this score, that score, the other score. And if the score is between this and this, then do this, blah, blah. So that's what they've done. So the inventory report is an inventory report. You can see what is what, but this is translated into some kind of a management tool so that you can manage the performance of your content by paying attention to things that could be better.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I use the category listings report. I pull it down, I don't know, every couple of weeks and just see if any information's listing. But most of that's just the back end, different attributes. Where this sounds like it's more of the PDP on the front end and giving you that score.
Yes, definitely. It's from everything that I've seen, it's all about utilizing those filtering capabilities that Amazon offers. For each category, it's different. It's they have all different things, and most people don't submit those attribute values. So you end up relying on just the keywords and whatever advertising you're doing. I have something else that I want to share with you. This is my latest bombshell discovery, all because of, I'm not going to take full credit for it, another guest that I had on the show. He kind of shared this idea with me, and I started digging, and we're still not done studying completely, because, as you know, nothing with Amazon is simple yet.
It'll change tomorrow. So
now that you are a 3P seller, these are very important for you. So organic traffic, that's what everybody wants. So you are running paid ads, and you're looking to rank high on certain keywords. And the reason why you do that is so that when you rank high on those keywords, some of the searches for those keywords, you show up organically and get organic traffic, right? So that's the concept. So a lot of people, in fact, track, where do I rank organically for this keyword, that keyword, right? Are you doing that yourself or not?
I am. I have a platform I use that tells me. I don't do it. I don't manually do it myself, but
yeah, okay. Helium 10 does that. So are you using Helium 10?
I'm not. I use it's called iDerive.
Okay, all right, I know that one. But so here is the story. So it starts with the premise that when people search by those certain keywords or use those search terms, and you've done a good job and you rank high organically, those searches will bring organic traffic to you. So therefore, the answer to the question, where does organic traffic come from, is search, right? So this theory has been proven wrong. So the answer, then you may say, okay, then where does the organic traffic come from, right? The answer is anything but search.
So that, are you saying off Amazon traffic thing being pushed
No,
to? No. So
no.
explain farther.
Okay. So first of all, this theory, where is the proof, right? So this is not foolproof and it's not 100% yet, but on the surface, it looks like it's proof. So organic search and paid search, ultimately, both of those are search term based performances, right? So therefore, if you go to your paid advertising, your campaign, and then you download the reports, and then you look at your search term report, as your sponsored product, keyword search, look at the performance. All you have to do is take a specific time frame, 1 month, 3 months, whatever you pick. Of course, wider the time frame, better. And download that search sponsored product search term report. Look at the total number of clicks. It's very easy to see. It's no big deal. And then you go to your search query performance, now that it's available. That is everything, right? That's not just paid. That's everything. So for the same time frame, download that. That gives you the top 1,000 keywords. Now, it's usually whatever is bringing you business, it's there. It's within that 1,000. So assuming that 1,000 is the total, download that and look at the total clicks. You are going to find that both totals are pretty close.
How does that work?
That means that if your search query performance shows you all the searches, and then your paid searches show the total clicks, and they are the same, that means you're not getting organic traffic.
Right.
That's the evidence. So now the next question is, okay, assuming that theory holds, then what is driving it, right? So how do you how does Amazon system know, oh, let's give this one more organic traffic? By the way, where is it coming from? Okay. Where is it coming from? So where is it coming from is all kinds of places. First of all, when you log on to your Amazon.com, just the marketplace, usual marketplace, as a shopper, you're getting all kinds of stuff being displayed to you, right? Frequently bought together. And there's all kinds of content. Amazon sends out emails. There's all these things that Amazon has to bring exposure to certain products. Oh, you like this, you bought this, and you may also want to take a look at this. So all these things are driving organic traffic to your listing that has nothing to do with search. So since that's where the traffic is coming from, the question then, what is influencing this? What is, because Amazon being systems company, what is saying, okay, now turn on the tap, give this one more, turn off on this one? And the answer is fascinating. It's all based on how hedge funds operate. And the trigger is controlled by the BSR.
Interesting.
So It doesn't matter where you rank on any keyword, all this work you're doing, forget it. It's very simple. Drive as many orders as possible, and you're going to get more organic traffic.
Right. Wasn't there a report that if you have the bestseller banner on or bestseller badge, your increases your orders by like 40
Oh,
something
yeah.
percent?
Yeah. I mean, those are things, but at the end of the day, those are still things associated with search, because when a listing comes up and it has this badge and that badge, it's coming up because somebody searched it. What I'm talking about is nothing to do with searching. It's just getting more exposure for the product, purely driven by BSR. Now, does this mean you shouldn't be ranking on keywords? Of course you should, because of conversion. So if you have focus on certain keywords, your conversion is going to be greater, and therefore your bids will be cheaper. And if you think about this, so what Amazon is thinking is, I mean, it's always reading between the lines, as you know. They're thinking, okay, we are here to make money. Okay, we make money from sales, we make money from advertising, and it's pay to play anyway. That's no secret. But also in the process, we want to make the customer experience the best. So how do we do it? Very simple. Get people to get better and better in advertising. And if they are good at advertising, then we're going to give them more organic traffic.
The flywheel, their own internal.
That's it. It's very simple. It's the BSR. So if you can influence, if you do things to influence the BSR, you're going to increase organic traffic. That's the moral of the story.
Right. I've never, yeah, it's very interesting. I'm glad you shared it.
So I tell you what we are doing. We are analyzing, and hopefully we are automating this in our system. Is we are doing this analysis of paid clicks, total clicks, and therefore organic clicks, keyword by keyword, because that's where the opportunity is. It's one thing to see the total picture, but it's another, okay, let's see now on this keyword, how many paid clicks, how many total clicks, and how many organic. So, and there may be some opportunities where keywords are getting organic clicks, but not paid. Then obviously that's an opportunity to advertise and things like that. But how it impacts the big picture is once the whole thing is over, it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see because, yeah, it's always, I mean, when there's new ways or new theories and stuff, it's always very manual, right? Like, and that's obviously what you're trying to build is something that's more automated, but that's interesting.
I have a question for my listeners. Are you experiencing cash flow challenges with your Amazon business? Well, silly question. Who is not, right? So let me introduce you to Viably, a unique solution tailored for Amazon sellers and e-commerce enterprises. By connecting your Seller Central or Shopify account, you can promptly access funding along with a variety of financial tools, all for a flat fee. It's as simple as that. And for my listeners, they are offering an extra $1,500 in funding for eligible applications. Start your quick and easy application today at runviably.com/legends. And that's runviably.com/legends. Yeah. So I thought, I mean, I now on pretty much whenever the episode is relevant, I bring this up and trying to spread the word, so to speak. So this is the new way of doing it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know I'm gonna go play with it now.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I heard about this, the first thing I did, I downloaded the reports, looked at it, and it was, in fact, I share with you the numbers I saw on this particular client. I looked at their data. Paid search was 7,700 for the time frame I picked, 7,700 clicks. Search query performance showed 6,700.
Wow. That's very, yeah, I mean, that's very close. That's too close to be a coincidence.
Paid is more. So now the thing is, data, as you know, is has to be reliable. Its source is Amazon. So you may say, okay, how much of this data can we discount? Well, you're not going to discount 50% of it.
No.
So either way, there is something here.
Yeah, well, either way, it's still close, right? Even if you discount some of it, but
Yeah. So, Craig, I want to also talk to you about transitioning from 1P to 3P. What are some uh, other adjustments that you had to make, specifically about managing numbers? What were you tracking before, and what was it that you had to start tracking? And discuss the performance metrics as well as financial. So, what was the change?
I'm still figuring everything out. There's so many different things that you can track. And I think on the one piece side, having POs come in and you knew what your sale price was, you knew what your co-ops were, it was relatively easy from a business standpoint to track it. Where I think 3P, I had background in 3P already before I transitioned, as you know, but there's so many other line items on the P&L, and Amazon constantly changing fees and things like that. I mean, everybody's been through it. During COVID, it was like 5% increases. Now they're doing inbound fees, outbound fees, all sorts of fees that we have to track, which it gets complicated. There's softwares out there that help with it. But I think that's the biggest difference. I mean, I feel like the wholesale model or the 1P model is a lot easier to line item and track. Where 3P, I feel like you're constantly being like, wait, what? Wait, where is it coming from? How's this work? Like, why is it doing this? So yeah, I think that's the biggest difference between the two from a financial perspective.
So, in your financials, what are things that you are constantly monitoring?
I mean, FBA fees, I think it's important to keep on also FBA sizing, making sure that something doesn't get inflated and then you're getting charged extra. I don't think it happens a lot, but it does happen where something's mismeasured or manually measured and it's measured incorrectly at Amazon. I think the other stuff, like from a day to day, what we're tracking is inbound shipping. Obviously, if we can ship more efficiently USP or UPS versus LTL or vice versa, trying to optimize our operation to be able to ship the most efficient way. We just went through a pricing exercise. I don't look at it every day, but we raised prices recently. So making sure that your margins are there, because Amazon announces fee changes, but they're hard to track. So just make sure they're on there. I'm trying to think fee wise, what else storage fees. I mean, it's not a huge issue for us because we moved through, but I know people with make sure you don't have long-term storage fees because those can add up pretty quickly. With Amazon's new regulations on storage, they're going to get really expensive on both ends. Like if you don't have the 8 weeks of inventory, and then if you go over, I want to say that it's like 90 days or 120 that it starts kicking in now. But yeah, there's so many nuances, and it's like if you don't pay attention to some or all of it, like it can get away from you pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, I mean, tracking it is already hard in the sense that it's not always taking a snapshot and looking at it, but looking at it over time, right? So,
Yeah.
which indicates that you have to store the data somewhere, and then you have to look at it over time. The other thing is it's the organizing the data, because Amazon settlement report comes in. That's what you are working with. That's your source.
Okay.
You have to manage that settlement report in a way that you separate out your fees, because you cannot afford to look at each line item separately. You have
Right.
to group some of them. So what I like to do always is bundle a bunch of fees together into one bucket and then track what is the percentage of that bucket according to the total sales. So, so my buckets are usually item-based FBA fees. This is what you would normally check. What is the FBA fee to ship? And I put them in a separate bucket in the accounting. They sit separately. And what is that percentage compared to total sale? And then another bucket is the Amazon commission, because by the time you have the returns and the refunds, and that can be complicated, it's not always straightforward. So that's another bucket. Another bucket is storage. I'd like to keep an eye on it separately. And another bucket is reimbursements.
Yeah. And that one's hard. I mean, I use a third party that tracks reimbursements for me, but
well, no, I mean in the accounting, because they combine. So all these things in the accounting, so reimbursements, and the last one is everything else. You know, clawback fee, processing fee, FBA inbound fee, you know, removal order fee, and all those bits and pieces. I bundle them all into one. So there's 5 line items. But there is a 6th one that is the most important one to give it perspective. And you know what that is? It's the promotions and discounts. Because the sales, I post them as gross sales. And because most people just post the net after the discount. And then suddenly, you know, all those line items as percentage of your top line doesn't mean anything because it's changing all. So that is something that I'm finding, and what you end up seeing is alarming, because people keep giving these discounts, and now they have these brand tailored promotions. Have you checked those?
Yeah, we've used them. I mean, obviously you discount, but they're performing relatively well. But to your point, like, you have to discount.
Well, you have to discount, but you know, they combine. So one of my clients ended up giving 50% discount.
Oh, geez. And we don't use them consistently, but you're right. Yeah, they do combine.
So it's important to know, because when something goes wrong, what you want to be able to do is, okay, where was the problem? And if you are looking at these compounded amounts, then you're not going to know. But when you break it down like that, it seems to help identify. And generally, the problem is with the promotions, because they eat into the sale. And if you don't see them separately, you don't really know what is the impact of those promotions.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, you definitely need to track it, because we do have them on a dashboard. I don't look at it every day, but I do look at it from time to time to make sure. But to your point, like on the discount, in my perspective, it's gotten out of hand on Amazon, and consumers are trained now not to buy unless they see a discount.
Yeah. I mean, they have those clip coupons that didn't used to be the case, and they have promotions that require a coupon. And my favorite is we had one of those promotions running, but the client forgot to check the box, not to display it on the product page. So it was like an exclusive discount with a promotion code, and then as yet it was being displayed. And the other one is, with those promotions, you have to cap the maximum quantity that they can purchase.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many nuances. We could get so deep and go into every facet of Amazon.
So let's talk about the advertising aspect. So what are some differences between being a 1P vendor and being a 3P seller in terms of how you manage the advertising on Amazon?
We actually run advertising on 3P. It was so hard on 1P. We would test it from time to time, and this was years ago. And we did it probably the last 2 years when it was on Vendor Central. But the ability to get data and to understand where your advertising dollars was going on 1P it was so hard. Like you could try to tie it back to POs and that sort of thing, but there was no visibility into what was going on. Where 3P, the systems are the same, but there's so much more visibility, and you can act to your point, like we can see what we're spending. We can see the ACOS, ROAS, tacos, whatever you want to measure. And you can see conversions and sessions and blah, 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 where 1P, it was like a black box. And it was just like, am I just giving Amazon however much money per month? And like, what's it actually driving? So visibility is the biggest thing. And that, I mean, some of my reasons, there's so many reasons why we moved to 3P, but one of them is transparency and visibility into what we're doing and how it's making a difference.
So when you are a first party vendor, really the focus is on shifting units, right? So
yeah, I mean 1P, as you're aware, I mean, it's mainly the wholesale, right? Like, so my business was different back then. My business was getting a PO on Monday and making sure it's shipped on Friday, and making sure that my cost to Amazon was enough to cover. Where 3P, you're operating a whole different business, and it's more, I'm the one selling the units. So like I have to move units, where previously, like, yes, we could advertise on 1P, but Amazon was the one who owned it and was trying to push it.
Sure. So my point is, when you are doing first party supplying to Amazon, your operation is fairly simple. You don't need a huge team, you don't need specific expertise. So share with us a little bit about how you organized the operation. What are some roles that you had to put in place with
On the 1P side or the 3P side?
on the once you transition from
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a whole different ballgame, because now, you have to have a true advertising team. You have to have a content team. You've got to have, content copy team, and the finance and accounting side. I've kept my team small in California, and we're still very focused on the production, the roasting and the production piece, and shipping to Amazon or Walmart or whoever it is. And then I've outsourced the other areas of the business to agencies or freelancers and things like that I manage, but they're not they're all remote.
So advertising is that needs responsible. I'm assuming this is part of the outsourced work, right?
Yeah, I'm not a master at ads by any means, and I don't have the time to, obviously there's some softwares, but I don't have the time to go in and manage it on a day-to-day basis, because I need to run the business. So you've got, the ads piece, the ops piece. I break out content and marketing into its own bucket. Some people I know put it under the ops side a little bit on Amazon. You're going to have shipping, which is, inbound and outbound shipping. But really, sorry, I'll go backwards. I look at our business almost as two. Like, we have our manufacturing side, and then we have our e-commerce side. And I kind of look at them separately, because this one has a lot more freelancers or hands on it, right? This one is roasting, packing, distributing. So on the Amazon side, so it's ops, it's going to be content creation, accounting. And then there's all these other things that you have to have, right? Because most brands aren't just Amazon, right? They have all these other channels. So like I have different people for different channels as well.
So when something starts to perform badly or sales drop and you need to analyze, so whose job is that to look into that and fix it?
I mean, ultimately it's my problem, so I need to dive into it. But I have an agency that helps me with the ops and the advertising piece and the analytics. So they have data scientists, so I'll have them dive in, and then they'll kind of alert me to the issue, and then I can figure out what we need to do to change it.
Okay, so ultimately, you need somebody who's familiar with all the stuff to dig into it.
Yeah, I think it's, I am very well versed in the back end of Amazon and I know where to pull reports except for the one you mentioned. So I'm gonna go get that one. But uh um it's just so much bandwidth to do it all by yourself, right? Like you have to have support once you
Yeah.
get to a certain level. Like if you're just starting out, it's probably a different story to some extent.
Well, I mean, look, it's the value of the work, right? So there's only 24 hours in a day. It's what you can do to produce the most within the day.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, in a global world nowadays, like you can find people. And I mean, to your point earlier, like I have a 2-year-old daughter, so I don't, I love being around people and everyone being in the office might be fun, but I also need to concentrate and I can have people working around the clock around the world. And, it's just the wheel keeps turning.
Yeah. So this is a good segue into my usual getting to know you
Yeah.
segment, so to speak. Your 2-year-old now is 2 years old. How did that impact the hours you had to spend, and how did that factor into this whole work and
I mean, I
transition?
lost a lot of sleep in the beginning, but um, I think your priorities change a little bit. She and family are the number one priority. And other than the manufacturing piece, which we have a team that does all of that, I just manage it. I can do almost everything remotely. So it might mean getting up early and working before she wakes up. But I get her ready for school every morning, take her to daycare or school, and then go to the office. And either my wife or I will pick her up at 4:30, and I try to get home now at 5:30. Where before that, there were days I wouldn't get home till 9 or 10. But the time is precious with the little one, so you have to take what you can get, and then you might work late. Like she goes to bed at 7:30, so there's still time to get stuff done.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, having a kid it changes the perspective completely. That it's business in the end is all about money, but you have
Yeah.
something else. So, what I'm curious about is, so I introduce you as startup addict because that's how you self-describe startup addict. You were last time, when you were on the show.
Yeah.
Now, San Diego Tea, Coffee, and Spice Company is no longer a startup.
It never really has been because I mean, it's been around since 1979, and then I've been involved in it since 2012. But we had other companies in between that we would move our focus to. And that was where, back to our Amazon, 1P was the right way to go at the time because you just get POs every week, right? Like you didn't have to manage all the other stuff we talked about on 3P. But now that we've sold the other companies, the coffee side is my priority, and that's what I'm focused on. And I'll advise people and consult other brands and startups and things like that. But for the interim, I don't see myself starting anything immediately or in the next year or so. But just focus on this and focus on my family for the time being, and then do something again late down the road.
So I can see that addiction is kind of subsiding
Yeah,
as you.
I mean, there's a lot of risk that comes with it there, but there's a lot of reward, and we've had successes, and your priorities change a little bit. I'm sure as she gets older, like I'll have more, well, I say more time. I probably won't have more time, but I may have more itch to start something new or join a
Yeah,
startup.
itch is the word. So it's interesting because people start one thing and then entrepreneurs always it's always roller coaster, right? So it's
Mhm.
always chasing something. Somebody gives an idea and suddenly you're going. And I was watching this documentary with about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and this is the ultimate example of how. And this man had three successful, totally separate, one has nothing to do with the other careers. And it was amazing to see that when you listen to him, he says, "Oh, I started to develop a vision. I was seeing myself in the window, posing." So that was his first one. And then he goes on to being an actor. And then, of course, all of these had the same thing in common. You'll never make it. You'll never make it.
Right.
You have a terrible accent. You have no way. You are entertainment business. And then the guy becomes the governor of.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think it just comes like, or the right opportunity comes along or the right idea. But I'm not staying up at night trying to think of ideas.
Yeah. I mean, they come to you. And then also it's your perspective as an entrepreneur is always different, right? So it's not like somebody is going to tell you, you're going to develop your own perspective. So this was great, Craig. It's always great to see, of course. And I feel like, we had that episode recorded like last week. And
I know it came when you reached out. I was like, wait, has it already been that long?
yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And I'm seeing all the old guests. It's great. So I have this idea, maybe one day will become reality, but have some of the guests that attend and that we develop the relationship, keep in touch and everything, have like I don't know, a weekend somewhere, like a convention kind of thing. It would be fun.
A little mastermind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's exactly that, because during these episodes, it's always sharing ideas and what worked, what didn't work. So I read the reviews we get, and it's almost like people are tuning in to learn.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think I said it once before, or maybe twice, but there's a lot of expertise in the Amazon world. So ask for help. Like, don't try to reinvent the wheel.
exactly. Great. Thank you. So share with us your contact information, anything you want to share with the audience.
Yeah. I mean, if you are trying to find me, I'm on LinkedIn under just search Craig Leslie. You'll find me easily. And then, yeah, if you're a coffee drinker, go buy San Diego Coffee or the Bean Organic Coffee Company on Amazon. Nick, it's been great being on and obviously spending some time with you.
Oh yeah. It's always a pleasure, and thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Before I go, a quick reminder to say goodbye to your cash flow problems and claim your extra $1,500 when you qualify for $25,000 or more in funding. Go to www.runviably.com/legends and start your application today. Thank you. And this brings us to the end of another episode. And I'll see you in the next one.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the episode, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too.